Hey crafters, thanks for joining me. Today I'm going to make a couple cards inspired by the Northern Lights with fuzzy polar bears. Hope you enjoy! So the first thing that I did was I worked on my card front. So using a piece of paper that's 5 by 7 inches, I blended some Salvaged Patina Distress ink over the front of the card. And I left about an inch at the bottom for the ice and the snow. Now I wanted this background to look like the Northern Lights or the Aurora Borealis. So after I put the Salvaged Patina down, I used some twisted Citron and my finger dauber to apply the ink in a green neon stripe. And I repeated this several times along the top of the card so that it is more or less evenly spaced, as you see here. Then once I was happy with that, I used some Wilted Violet Distress ink, and also using the finger dauber, I put the Wilted Violet beside the Twisted Citron. And the great thing about using these finger daubers is that you can control where the ink goes, and it's only going to be about a ½ inch thick. So it's great for making stripes like this. Now I also added a little bit of Kitsch Flamingo, and it's quite a light color, so it doesn't really show up on top of the Salvaged Patina, but what it does do is it darkens the Salvaged Patina, and you'll see that once I add some more ink, but you could always skip this step if you prefer. So then I went back again with the Salvaged Patina Distress ink and blended that over the top, and I made sure to keep the Twisted Citron peeking through. Then I used my sparkle pen. This is like the Spectrum Noir sparkle brush pen. It's just a generic brand. And I spread it across my background following the lines of the distress ink. And I was quite generous with the ink so that it has a really beautiful shimmery effect. It's just gorgeous in real life. So I really enjoyed how this background turned out. And I went ahead and made another one, so you'll actually see 2 cards at the end of this video. I'll set that aside to dry for a moment, and now I can add some ice on the bottom. So I used some post-it note tape just to add a line for my iceberg or my snowy ice seam at the bottom, and I just tore it so that it was a nice rough edge and put that onto my background. And then I used some Nuvo Glacier paste. This is the color Frostbite. And I spread it across the bottom of my card. Now once I had completely covered the bottom, I thought it would be more interesting to add a texture on with this Glacier paste instead of it being smooth. So using the same spatula, I just started to pat the Nuvo Glacier paste, and that gives it a nice texture that kind of looks like ice. Now this will take a good hour to dry, but it's really worth the wait because it makes your card a lot more interesting when there's lots of textures on it. So while that dries, I'm going to stamp my critters for this card. So I used the 2 polar bears from the Beary Happy Holidays set, as well as those images of the fish. I used a little bear from the Germ-Free Bear, and these party hats are from the Year 9 stamp set. And the cake is from the Little Dragon, and the last few images there, the balloon, the gift, and the tiny little hat, are from Scooting By. So once I die cut the images, I added some Deco Foil Transfer Gel Duo onto my bears using a paintbrush. And I just painted it over the bears, trying to avoid the black lines as much as possible. And wherever you put this Deco Foil Transfer Gel, it will create a tacky surface that will allow us to add some fuzziness to these bears and make them look more like polar bears. So it's a little bit tedious painting this on, but similarly to the background, it's well worth the effort, as you'll see shortly. So the Deco foil transfer gel is white when you put it on, but it turns clear once it's dry. So now that it's all dry, which took about a half an hour, you can see it's clear and it's tacky to the touch. So now I can apply the flock transfer sheets. So I cut some pieces that are roughly a little bit bigger than the bears, and there's a fuzzy side and a cardboard side. So I'm going to put the fuzzy side onto the bear. And I put these directly onto my cutting plate from my die cut machine. And as directed on the package, I used a bit of parchment paper around them. And the regular sandwich for die cutting. And now when you remove it from the die cut machine, you can carefully peel back that flux transfer sheet and you get a beautiful fuzzy polar bear. Now don't worry if some of the black lines are covered, because I'll show you how to fix that. So I just used a fine black pen to outline the bears, and especially focusing on their eyes and any areas that were covered with that flock. And that just helps to redefine them and make them look a little bit crisper. And if you'd like to see another example of a card made with flock, I will link to a video with some fuzzy sheep at the end of this video. So now that my bears are done, I'm going to put them onto my background. So I'm just going to create a birthday party scene with these polar bears, and I thought it would be cute if they were celebrating their birthday under the northern lights. So I used the big party hats for the bigger bears and the little one for the little cub at the front, and then added the balloons in. And once I was happy with the placement of everything, I glued them down using some foam squares on the bears and just regular glue on everything else. Now to make it a bit more sparkly, I applied some crystal colored stickles over the balloons. And I also thought that this card could use a little bit of snow. So once I was happy with my stickles, I used some of my Cosmic Shimmer fluffy stuff, which is my go-to snow, and I applied that over the bottom area of the card. But if you'd prefer a card without snow, I'll show you another example at the end of this, where I have a similar background minus the snow. But there's something about this snow that's quite magical. And it's always handy to have a card that works well for winter birthdays, since it's such a busy time of year. So once I finished adding my fluffy stuff, I used my heat tool to heat it, and that causes it to balloon and look a bit more like snow. I'll hold it up in a second so you can see it. And after heating it, it's a good idea to let this sit for an hour or so until it's completely dry. And you can see it's just gorgeous. So I did trim the background, so it is now 4 3/4 by 6 3/4. So when I apply it to a 5x7 card base, there will be a nice white trim. And before doing that, I'm just going to add in some white gel pen stars. And then I'll back this entire piece of paper with some double-sided tape. I find that when you apply a card front with a lot of texture to a card blank, it's best to use double-sided tape rather than glue, as this helps to keep it nice and flat and straight. So I'm just going to put that on my 5x7 inch card, and then I'm going to add a sentiment. Now the sentiment, the top part comes from the same Beary Happy Holidays set, and the bottom part comes from the On the Beach set, the part that says it's your birthday. And I just used a bit of metallic paper as a border for that. So on the inside of my card, I'm going to use the same idea from Scooting By. So this Have a Happy Day is from that Scooting By set. And the idea is you're supposed to put the wheelie in between the and the happy. But to make it more appropriate for this card, I'm going to use this sentiment from the Beary Happy Holidays, which says berry in the middle, so that it will say, have a berry happy day. And then I'll just add one of those polar bears from the Beary Happy Holidays set. And then I'll use my black gel pen just to add that little insertion mark in the sentiment. And if you do make a mistake like I just did there, your white gel pen is your best friend. So I'll just cover that with white gel pen. Now on my second card, I used the same background, but I used the bears from the Den Sweet Den set. And I stamped those in the VersaFine Onyx Black ink. And then I stamped some of the stamps from the Superstar set. And those are with the Copic Friendly Memento Tuxedo Black ink. And I just put the Make-A-Wish inside the bubble. Then I thought these bears would like to go camping, so I die cut the tent from the Build a Campsite set, and I used some of this Colorbox silver ink on the main part of the tent. And I thought this Wilted Violet would go well with the silver. Now, just to make it look like the northern lights are reflecting off the tent, I used a bit of Salvaged Patina and applied it on the top with my finger dauber. And then I added some foam squares on the back of this and glued the rest of the tent together. And I thought that these three colors on the tent worked really well with the Northern Lights background. And as you'll see, it creates a really nice alternate idea for this background. So I'll just put this tent together, and then I can glue the purple flap on the top. And I just love the combination of the silver, the purple, and the Salvaged Patina. So now I'm just going to put my card together, and I've used the same flocking on these polar bears as well. And I'll add in the tent and the polar bears. And I'll use the little telescope to make it look like the cub is looking at the stars. And once those are glued down, I can work on the inside of the card. Now the sentiment that says there are stars is from the same Superstar stamp set, and I'm going to use the other part of that on the inside of the card. And that says, and there are superstars, that's you. And there's different ways to put the super in, but I decided to put it as I did on the last card and put it above the word and then add a little insertion mark. So I just added some gold highlights around the word super and then added my insertion mark. And now you can see the finished card as well as the other finished card, both with that beautiful background and the fuzzy polar bears. Thanks for watching, and I hope you found this video inspiring. Be sure to subscribe so that you're notified whenever I post a new video. Have a crafty day!